Let's create a Gantt chart together used for planning. In column A, you can see the various tasks. Column B gives when we start that task, and column C, how long that task will last. I am going to select all of the data with Control A and insert a bar chart. Oh, clustered bar. But notice it's not treating the start date in there. It's just giving the length or the duration that we have. So let me show you the trick that we need to do in order to get the start date to also be part of the data. I come over here and reformat each of the dates to be just a general or number. We know about underlying numbers there. Now, when I select all with the Control A and select a chart, oh, this looks a lot better. This is what we want, where we have both the start date and the duration. So this now becomes the beginning of our Gantt chart. Let me make this a little bit bigger here to start with. Note that we are only interested in the duration, so I can get rid of this legend here. But we've got all of this before it starts, and we want it just to come from here on. So I will click on the axes here, and axes options. It has a minimum and a maximum. So I want it to start right here just as we begin our planning meeting. And I left these up here showing the underlying data, 40546. 40546. Now, the newer versions of Excel also will change a date into the underlying data, so that doesn't become a problem. But while we have this up, we'll just go ahead and do this, 40627. And now we're only showing where the red begins. But my things are in opposite order. I'd like the planning meeting on top and the board meeting at the end. So I've selected the axes, and over here, axes options, categories in reverse order. That flipped the planning meeting to the top and the board meeting to the bottom, but note it also put these dates across the top. I really need them on the bottom of the chart to produce this Gantt chart. I have here horizontal axis crosses at, I'm going to put at maximum category, and that put those dates on the bottom. But those dates are still numbers. Let's change them back. So here I can change the dates back to what we would expect. Let me just put this in as maybe this format. And coming down here, well, that's interesting, but that really isn't the format that I want with the year. I don't need that year. So I can also format these directly. When I changed the start date up here, it changed the format down here. But I also can change this format directly myself by coming down to Format Axes, the number, and we see it down here what it would be. All I really want to have is the month, slash, and the day. That will put the format that I want, but I have to say add. Now you'll see that those are formatted nicely for our dates on this Gantt chart. Next, I don't want to show these blue lines at all. So I'll click on that series, come over here and say no fill and no line. And when I click off, that has disappeared. Now I will enlarge our series by clicking on them and putting the overlap at 100, and let's put the gap at maybe 40, and that thickens them up. Next, let's change this series to blue, So fill as a moderately dark blue, and I'm going to put a shadow on it. Let's do an inner shadow. Next, we will change the grid lines. First, the vertical, make it a little bit darker, and use dots. To do this, we'll first select them, and then over here, let's get something a little bit darker, maybe this here, and go down to dash type, and we'll pull in the dots. Now we need also a horizontal grid line. So grid lines, I'm going to put in a horizontal grid line, select it, also change its color to be darker, and this one will turn into dashes. The plot area then is a solid blue, but not that dark. So I'll pick a real light blue over here. Let's zoom out just a little bit here. Next, let's put the chart title on top of our graph. Let me come over here and say chart title, centered overlay, and we'll say project schedule. And let's make it bigger and bold. And I'm going to change the font using some of this fancy word art up here. So you can see as I hover over the different ones, different ways of doing it. I'll select this one. And then let's move it down. There we go. Finally, we just need to put a shadow around the outside of our project and remove the line. So I'm going to click on the plot area and shadows, presets, outer, and then just click on the chart itself and remove that line. And we've got our basic chart. Now to our next tab.